All right. Are we starting now anyway?
Yes, it's now rolling. Whatever. I can edit and cut.
Why would you edit anything that we're actually doing? Because it's all gold, isn't it?
It's just awesome, isn't it?
It is
I
definitely.
know. You and me together, it's just like a dream team.
I mean, come on. I mean, listen. Normally, we don't let people back behind the bar here, you know. But you know, straight out of Germany,
Yep.
we make exceptions. Oh, we got to talk about whiskey now.
We can talk about anything else as well. I just wanted the picture.
What are we doing behind this bar right now besides having a lot of fun?
Yes.
We're actually tasting through a lot of our, what we like to call our LTOs, which stands for limited time offering. That's industry
If you're
lingo.
ever in Richmond, Virginia, come here. Where is here?
Oh, here is at Reservoir Distillery, our main manufacturing plant in Scott's Addition. It is a really, really beautiful neighborhood. We have 9 breweries, 3 cideries, a meadery, and a winery, and of course a distillery. Been here for 15 years, and the space actually was originally a Canada Dry Schweppes and 7-Up bottling plant.
I did not know that. And for those of you who do not know where we still are, we're Richmond, Virginia.
Yes. Didn't I say Richmond, Virginia? No.
Nah, that's great. That's good with the picture now.
That's why he's here, to keep me on track.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll just keep going.
1180 Summit Avenue. What was it?
1800
1800.
Summit Avenue. You can't miss it. There's a giant distillery written on the side of the building. Plus, you can smell it because we have all these open top fermenters behind us that you're going to see. Or did they already see it? Where are we?
We're towards the end.
Oh, we're at the end now.
Now this is after the warehouse. So we went through the stages, and we have the barrels. And now we actually have the bottles, and so now we're trying it.
Yes.
So
Well,
we're at the end.
now you see what a
anyone
real distiller actually acts like.
Anyone who's stayed along this long and now knows what happens afterwards. We get to drink.
So this is a really special bottle, and what we're doing is we'll taste through a lot of things.
Yes.
We can taste through the basic range, but this is a fun one. This is a collaboration we did with Francois Boyer, which is a very beautiful cognac house, and we did something really fun with them. We swapped samples, and then we all tasted them, and then agreed what types of barrels or what juice we wanted to use, and then what essentially blend was going to go in the other person's barrel. So, for example, they shipped over a 400-liter limousine cask that they then picked a wheated rye to go into it, which I never would have done because I would have thought that rye would be too big and too spicy for cognac, because cognac has very delicate notes that you can disrupt pretty easily with an American spirit. But and this is the great thing about doing a collaboration with guys that really, really know what they're doing. They were like, no, I think this is going to work really well, and it's turned out beautifully. It's actually one of my most favorite things that we've ever made. Wow. And you will find some of this in Europe. Yeah, you can get
47%.
40 actually.
40 actually. Wow.
No, I'm sorry. 43.
It says 43.
Yep, 43. Sorry. It's that barrel. That barrel bite gets in there.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Is that the limousine? Oh, can we get here? Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Great thing about cognac, guys, nobody knows barrel aging better than they do. When somebody goes, yes, we put a barrel here for 3 years, 2 months, and 3 days, and then this one note shows up for 2 weeks, and you harvest it then. Otherwise, you'll never see it again. And you're like, how did you know that? Yeah. And that's four generations of doing it. This is a really, really beautiful whiskey. It's again, it's flavors that I didn't expect. The way that the cognac just is an eau de vie, so delicate. The way that it blends with it, it's beautiful. Something you don't normally see in typical cognac finishes.
Now, at the very beginning of our video here, we did not talk about the crazy idea of having a distillery in Richmond. How did that happen?
Oh,
okay. How much time do we have?
Oh my, yes. So, started Reservoir so long ago. This is all the way back in 2008. That, and this is a crazy number. We were the 3rd distillery outside of Kentucky making bourbon. Man, yeah, crazy.
And the other 2, I got one right. St. George.
No, wrong.
I mentioned St. George even last time.
Yeah, you did, but then we started talking about agave.
Hudson.
Hudson was the 2nd, and that's where I went and trained as a distiller.
And what was the first one?
Bowman Brothers.
Bowman up in
Bowman
Virginia
Brothers,
as well.
yeah, in Fredericksburg.
Yeah.
They were the longest
Shame on me.
continuously owned family distillery until Sazerac bought them in the early aughts,
Right.
I believe. So yeah, Virginia has a very long history of distilling. In fact, the first bourbon was created not far from where we're standing right now at Berkeley Plantation.
Okay.
Yes, Reverend George Thorpe made 2 batches with Indian corn.
Yep.
He was a preacher. He was making it for medicine.
That's
he stored
400
it.
years ago, wasn't
He
it?
stored it in a barrel, 1620, and then the Indians promptly killed him. And
Promptly. Yeah.
and the barrels sat because back then it takes a little bit of time to go back and forth on the ship. It took his sons 15 years to settle his estate, and when they did, and this is how we know this, there were 2 barrels of corn liquor there at Berkeley Plantation that they took possession of. That is the first 15-year-old bourbon ever made.
Wow.
Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So why did I actually come down here? Because we just digressed, didn't we?
Don't worry, history lesson.
You know, it's always fun when we learn about bourbon.
I was going to say, my friends in Ireland, Scotland, 400 years ago, what were you doing?
Probably avoiding the taxmen with quarter casks on the road going around the King's taxmen. That's a thing too, and we'll talk about that later. But how did I get into this? So I was in New York City, and I was getting ready to leave a position at a job that I was doing, and I wanted to come back to Virginia because my kids were.
I think it was finance, wasn't it?
Yes, I was a bond trader, and there was a little thing that happened in 2008, and I had a nice front row seat to it. Did okay, it was fine, but I was all this gray hair came from that period of time, and I really wanted to do something else. Now, back then, I was what you would classify as a bourbon file, but you know, back in 2008. About 90% of everything came from four distilleries, and you could go, you could literally have a collection and have everything, like at least a representation of everything. And so the spectrum, like bourbon has a spectrum like this, but back then the spectrum was right here. But I had seen an article on George Washington's distillery getting rebuilt, and I was like, well, this looks kind of fun, and started researching it. And happened to come across Tuttletown, who again, as we talked about, was the second distillery outside Kentucky making bourbon, and they were only about an hour and a half from where I lived in New York City. And so so long ago, I actually wrote them a letter and said, hi, I'm thinking about doing
2000
this.
We started
emails. But it's like, and I said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. So it's very formal, polite, and said, you know, can I come and work for free? And they said, yeah, come on up. Because back then,
if you go to Springbank, you have to actually pay to work there for free.
Yes, that's true. That's not even free. That's negative. I think. But you know, this was a beautiful time in the industry because you know, craft hadn't been coined yet.
Right.
We were still referred to as micro distilleries, and the reason why we're called micro distilleries is because we just made a small amount. But you know, having somebody else start up just raise awareness. You didn't have to go to Kentucky to get your bourbon. And the guys at Tuttletown were really amazing. And they're like, we met and they said, yeah, you know, we like each other. You can come and work, and we're happy to have the help. Right. And I went up there and I worked pretty solidly for about 6 months, and then for another couple of months as I was traveling back and forth to Virginia, trying to find my spot to set this up. But they knew all along, it's like, yeah, I'm going to get something going. And they helped me with introducing me to the TTB and getting all my compliance done and working on the stills and just, you know, the functional reality of operating a distillery. It was really probably one of the most altruistic and beautiful things that I've ever seen in business. It's kind of hard to catch that nowadays because so many people are doing it. But because of that, they saved us obviously a lot of time. You know, so we kind of went into our setup really knowing what it is that we wanted to do, and you know, as a result, you know, we've always kind of, you know, wanted to pay it back. So when other people approach us, we always, you know, try to help them and be a good citizen in the community.
Is that where your idea for the single grains actually also came from, or where did that come from?
It actually did come from there, but it came from it in a much more mundane way. I mentioned the functional reality of actually operating a distillery. It is not the...
Because what you're doing basically is the Canadian way. In Canada, they do exactly the same thing. They do 100% rye, they do 100%
Yes.
wheat, 100% corn, and then they blend and mix afterwards.
Yes, yes.
You don't blend and mix, but that's why I'm trying to figure out where.
Well,
the
we do
influence
we do sometimes.
Okay, yes,
we do
you
sometimes.
All right,
But it wasn't for any knowledge of that.
Right.
I was I remember weighing out mash bills there, like huge mash bills, and like, oh, hey, it's tough, and the functional reality is like it's farming, and you're like slugging stuff around. And I was an engineer by training, so I'm looking at the process and going like, okay, well, what matters, what's important, and how do you make it a little bit more productive? And we should always be drinking more whiskey while we're talking.
Yes, please
and,
do that. Yeah.
Hey, sorry. Oh, Maison de Cuivre. This is our bourbon finished in Meritage red wine casks. So I'm measuring out all these mash bills, and there's a limited amount of malted barley in any mash bill, and I get that. It's also like one of the. You sure?
Yep.
Okay. It's also one of the more.
We were going to try more than 3, aren't we?
Well, we've got about 100 whiskeys behind us.
Yeah. At 20, I started going downhill. So
that's okay.
And we've had 7. This is number 8, I think. So.
Well, kids, remember he's Ubering, so
yes.
Always
and you're
do
being
that.
driven home by someone else, so that's
true.
Good. Behind the camera here, thank you.
I do get wittier and better looking the more whiskey that we drink.
I'm not sure if you get better looking, but the people you
maybe
look at
to
get better.
maybe to you.
Oh, exactly, yeah.
Cheers.
Watch out, cheers. All right, good. Keep on going now about your single grain bills.
Okay. So I'm weighing these things out, and you can imagine if you're doing like 800 pounds of grain and you're trying to get like, I need 600 pounds of this and 200 pounds of this and like another 100 pounds of this. It's just like, So malted barley is one of the more expensive components, yes. And it's the amount that we have in mash bills, modern mash bills. It's not really enough to convert all the sugar to make alcohol to have a yield that makes a real business proposition, if you will. Now, in the old days, when that's all you had, that's just what you had. But today, if you want to operate a distillery, that's not enough. So they throw enzymes on top. And so I had this brilliant question. I was like, well, why are we using malted barley if we got to put enzymes on top?
Right.
And they kind of scratched their heads and said, flavor?
Yeah,
Tradition?
flavor, yeah.
And I said, okay. So me thinking about what the Scotch guys do, I'm like, well, why aren't we doing single grains in an American style and also to the Canadian, a nod to the Canadians. And so I said, all right, well, fine, let's do that. So I simplified what Reservoir was doing, but and this is actually a fun anecdote. All the way back then, now we sold our first bottle in November of 2010, so just about almost 3 years later. And we were using quarter casks, and we still do use quarter casks, and we can get in that later. But back then, really, there's not that many distilleries doing this stuff, right? And what we discovered was people were very confused by single grains. Yeah. They're like, what do you mean there's just corn in this bourbon? Like, that's not right. And it's like, well, no, you can't do that. Mm-hmm. But we ended up actually not talking about it a lot because people just weren't ready for that type of thing. Now, luckily, craft beer came along and really exploded and got a lot of people thinking about like different flavors and stuff. And then on the follow, the craft distilling really started to grow and expand. And what people started realizing is that, again, we talked about like, here's this zone that, American distillation had been in, but we've got this really wide range. Yes. And Tuttletown was over here, and then we're like way over here, and people started to go, hey, I do want to try something different, and this is pretty cool. And then we started talking about actually, our stuff is this.
It's a 100% rye, it's 100% wheat, it's 100% corn. Oh, that's cool, great.
Yeah, and then what's really fun with those, and again, we'll get more into this, is that if you can take those and vat them in a glass, and then recreate any mash bill that you want. Mm-hmm. If you move them, and I'll thank Bourbon Patty, another friend of ours from Ireland, who had a mathematician figure this out, said that if we do 1% increments of the 3, there are 23 commas in the number of combinations that you can create. So that's going to take a really long time for you to get through. Right. Now I'm going to throw an extra wrench in that. All right, well, that's if they're the same age. What if I make them all slightly different age in the barrel. Well, now we got a 3 factorial on top, and we're just never going to get there. But what that does allow you to do is have a lot of fun, and you know, nobody's going to say no to that. So let's try this guy. Again, this is our 100% corn that we finished in a Meritage cask. It's at 100 proof.
Very good.
So quarter cask, and then into a really beautiful French oak.
What does this cost you?
That in the United
States.
$124.99, which is kind of like our go-to for any of our LTOs. We just kind of mark
that
them
as well, then, right?
Yeah, we mark all of our LTOs at $124.99 and just say, okay, that looks great. What's great about this particular bottling is when you go into a wine cask, wine at much lower ABV, yes? Right. So when you put any kind of liquor, alcohol into a barrel, it's a solvent and it's pulling out. And when you put a very low solvent like wine in, it leaves a lot in the barrel. So then when you go and you put something that is 65 ABV, then it's going to extract more. So what you get with this is essentially almost like a double barrel, where you get some kind of dark pitted fruits and berries that you wouldn't normally get, and that's because of the wine. It also makes it very dry, which is something that you don't normally see. A tiny bit
dry. It's not very dry.
Oh, I don't know. I think it's very dry.
Okay.
This is where Jason and I disagree, and we will fight about this off screen.
And we're going to arm wrestle.
Yeah. But
I'll lose.
To me, it's very tannic. And that's from the double barreling, which is something that you just normally, bourbons are typically very sweet and round and don't have that really heavy tannin note. Unless you're getting into something that's very old, and then you will start seeing that.
Was it from France or was it from California?
The barrels were from France,
Right, very good.
but the wine, it was a barrel that had come from France to the U.S., and had been, multiple fills, and last had a Meritage in it. Okay. The first time we did this, it was a Burgundy Grand Cru cask that had Merlot in it that had gotten breaded, but very good winemaker recognized that the Brett was coming. It was just a tiny hint of Barnyard Funk, which actually works really good with whiskey, and that's why they were dumping it. And they reached out to us and said, hey, do you want it? I was like, yes. And then we met the winemaker, and again, the winemaker and Shelley and I sat down and said, okay, let's start going through the whiskeys and figure out what's going to play with this particular wine. And we actually settled on just the straight 100% corn bourbon, and it worked really well. And so we've been doing that bottling ever since.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, well, thank you. You want to get into some of our maybe more available whiskeys?
Why not?
Would you like to do that? Okay.
Go for it.
Because we have some more LTOs that we'll do as well too. Let's do this. Boom. Here's a new one, and this is kind of fun. We'll talk about this. This is our Hunter and Scott. Now you might go, where does that name come from? It's almost like I'm in his head. I can feel him thinking it.
You can feel what I wanted to ask. I can just go out of the picture. You can keep on talking.
No. Come on in. So Hunter and Scott, when we have our main line that we make every day, we make 100% corn, 100% wheat, 100% rye.
How many barrels a year?
Ooh, we can do 22,000 proof gallons.
Perfect.
Because, and I like to say that because we work with not just quarter casks, we work with 10 gallons, 15 gallons. Let me put this in liters for you people. 38 liters to 50, 60 liters, 100 liters, all the way up to 200 liter casks. And even, we've got some bigger ones than that too. So when people go, how many barrels? It's like, I'm going to talk in
barrels.
and I talk in proof gallons, and a proof gallon is just a gallon of alcohol normalized to 50 ABV.
Right.
That's it. So we do about 22,000 gallons of that a year is what we make in that system that you saw earlier, which is kind of fun.
40,000 liters LPAs. Liters.
Is that a lot?
It's not bad. It's not, I mean, if we're talking about Macallan and Highland Park, I mean, you're just,
Oh my God.
you're just tiny, like tiny.
So I went to Glen Ord, and I
Yeah.
thought that was a lot of whiskey that
Yeah.
those guys made. What a cool setup. I mean, geez,
Well, there's
just
like
like
3 million, I think.
pot stills,
Oh,
pot
okay,
stills,
okay,
and
right.
and it's
Yeah.
all pot stills. You're like, oh. I got a great picture of Shelly and I standing in front of them. We're like, how are we going to drink all this? And then I went to Macallan on that same trip, and they didn't even have everything set up yet. But the way that they set it up, they had one ring set up, and it's very cool. If you haven't been there, the way that they do it, it's this ring.
The
It's
Walt
very
Disney
efficient.
of Scotland. I mean, come on, for
Yeah.
whiskey lovers.
But they had one of the first three that they're supposed to do, and it's going to like almost double what Glen Ord does. And Glen Ord, even right now, is like the number 3 in the world, I think.
For Scotch.
Or no, just in producing gallonage. Are they not? They're not number 3? Oh, yeah, well, it sounds like you know what the list is.
Yeah, never will a pot still distillery be on the top 10. You always have the grain distilleries first, which do hundreds of millions and not just tens of millions.
Does that count?
Well, yes, it does, because 90% of whiskey from Scotland is a blended.
Yes,
and
that's
you need your grains. So
true.
sorry,
I do like Glen Talkers. I'll give that.
but that is a single malt pot still.
I know, that's why I like it.
Exactly. Very good. Thank you, Travis Legal.
All right, so let me tell you about this Hunter Scott, which is what we're here to talk about. So when we originally were making our founding line, 100% wheat, 100% corn, 100% rye, we needed something that was more for like the cocktail line.
Yeah.
And so we called it our seconds label. And in the wine industry, that's usually your label, it's down below. And since it was the seconds, we decided to use our second name. So these are our middle names, Hunter and Scott. I am David Scott Cuttino. So that's that. Now, this is something.
Who's Hunter?
Jay.
Oh, okay.
You met Jay in
okay,
Berlin.
Right. Yeah,
Right?
I forgot about him.
Yeah. He's following Westbred around, so it's cool.
Okay, good.
Oh, wait.
Says I know you. Well, Jay.
Yeah. So Jay Carpenter and I, we put this thing together,
Yes.
this beautiful baby, and we're very proud of it. Now, the Hunter and Scott, this is what's different about this guy, and I don't think we have we don't have the old one. We did this forever with our own whiskeys. It was a 75 corn, 20 wheat, 5 rye blend, and it was a bit younger and a lower ABV at 45, and that was to be able to be more affordable and to enter in the market of cocktails and whatnot. But it proved to be so popular that we needed to increase production. Now, as you just pointed out, no pot distillery is ever going to be on the top of the list.
Right.
And so we're like, well, how do we do this? Because of those single grains that we made and how we can vat those and blend them, we've gotten to be very, very good blenders.
Yes.
And so what we decided to do was we had all these beautiful barrels from other distilleries, and we're like, well, let's see if we can't recreate it with some other guys. Look at this. This is what the original one looked like if you've ever seen it. See how it's got this
I'll hold
copper
this one
label?
up and you do that.
And
one.
then bang. That's how we know that this is 100% Reservoir. And then this one is a blend of Virginia barrels that Reservoir has made, Kentucky barrels, and Indiana barrels. So it's really 3 states or 3 appellations that are all distinctly different as to how they manufacture and what the terroir of that whiskey really tastes like. And we're blending them together to make something that is unique and I think very strong. It's a beautiful evolution of what we had with the original Hunter and Scott, and I think it's dynamite at the price. It's our entry level whiskey, and it's made to appeal to a very, very wide
price
audience.
in the U.S. is?
$44.99.
Yep.
So $45.
Excellent.
And there's a lot of other really nice whiskeys like this that are doing similar things that are selling for almost double the price. So this is a very great value.
So,
Cheers. Sláinte. And especially after all the really big whiskeys you've been tasting, this is what I like.
still actually can hold its own.
It can hold its own, but it's something that you can, I refer to as an everyday sipper.
Yep.
Like if you want to just come home and just have something, you're like, okay. It's
Don't
not
think
as,
about it. Yep.
Yeah, it's not as big as like some of the things that we just started with that were big.
And I
beautiful
usually don't grab the $124 whiskey and just have an everyday sipper. That's a special occasion Whiskey for me. I'm a cheapskate.
I drink $300 bottles every day.
Of course you do. Why stop with 300?
Well,
500, 3,000?
I like my Highland Park 32-year-old.
You
great.
can't get that for $300. I'm sorry.
That's true. Did I say a bottle? I meant a pour.
Oh, okay. That's in London, you're about right for that price. I think that goes for about 200 quid.
Yeah. Well, this as an entry level bourbon, it's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
It appeals to just a large audience. If you got somebody that's not used to brown spirits or just new and they want to try something, this is great. So this does really quite well for us, and I'm enjoying like the fun of like pulling the barrels together.
Yep. And 45% ABV, which I like as well.
Yep. Oh yeah.
So you could have gone lower, but you didn't. Thank you.
You know, you want to talk a little bit about proofs on bottles?
Let's go for
you want to do that?
Yes, let's go for it.
I'm sure this is probably a topic that you've covered before.
Okay.
So
Let's get nerdy, geeky.
all right, let's do my 2 cents as to why we do our things. So let's do this. Let's pull some of our founding lines, shall we?
All right.
Hold on.
We have to mention
here we go.
filtration as well, then.
Voila.
Voila.
So this is our wheat whiskey, 100% wheat.
And that's what we have in Germany, right?
Yeah, and we refer to it as our founding line.
Right.
Okay. And by the way, we have this in Germany. Yes, we will have some of this cognac in Germany, and it is goddamn special. So if you're not going to have it, please let me know because I will take some of it back. This
I might have to buy a case of it and do something.
And I do believe actually that, and I'm not sure where, but Francois Voyer, that has their 8-year-old assemblage in our barrels, is available in Germany. Oh. So all right, we're talking about proofing now. Okay, 100% wheat whiskey. All right, this is proofed at 100 or 50 ABV. Right. Why would we do that? Or why would I do that? Well, one of the first things I did is when you're actually doing your taxes here, you do it by proof gallons, and that is a gallon at 50 ABV. And you know what? It's a lot easier to do your taxes when what you're actually putting together is at that tax rate. There's no
so you're telling me you did this not for flavor, but because of laziness for tax returns?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that was a consideration.
Okay. And luckily the flavor profile was at 50%. Awesome.
Yes, that's true. So
you streamlined a lot, didn't you?
Of course I did. 50 ABV, why do you do it? Well, you can do it out of laziness, but really what's most important is that whiskeys, everybody knows, changes flavor depending on proof, temperature, time in the glass, oxidation. We can go through and we can even do a Glencairn tasting and show you like how this stuff works.
It's not even on the thing there.
And by the way, did you know if you fill it up to here, that's exactly a dram?
I did not know that.
There you go. I taught WhiskyJason something.
Yes, you did. Yes,
God
you
damn,
did.
this is a great
wow,
night.
This is a great, right in your diary, I taught WhiskyJason something.
It happened right here in Virginia.
Richmond.
You had to come all the way from Berlin. Oh, well.
Not Berlin, but that's okay.
Well, Germany.
Germany,
it's all the same thing, right?
Yes, of course it is.
I thought they were all next door. I don't know.
Well, remember we met in Dusseldorf.
That's true, but I thought that like Berlin was just next door.
It's a 4-hour.
Oh, well, 4 hours isn't.
It's actually a 6-hour car trip.
I can get to New York City from here in 6 hours.
Yeah, I know.
All right, anyway, we're getting sidetracked again. This is what this guy does. I'm just trying. I'm trying to teach people, and you're getting
proof. We're talking about proof.
So 100 proof, why, or 50 ABV. Whiskey changes flavor depending on proof and temperature. As you add water, you can bring it down. What that allows you to do when it's at 50 ABV, if it is a very well-structured whiskey, you can dial it into your own palate. Right. So you can either add water with a dropper, or you can throw a single ice cube in. And then you're really having fun because it's cooling it down and it's melting. And so over a period of time while you're playing with that glass, you're getting a couple of different looks as it's changing. And so you can't hide bad distillation at higher proof. Although we just had this.
I was going to say you can hide.
If you go really high.
Okay. I've had bad distillation.
And I just had this conversation at the Whiskey Snug, which is an amazing place in Missouri, but some really, really smart people there.
Yeah.
You can hide it up there, but you can also hide it down
Yes,
below.
exactly.
But if you're sitting around 100,
yeah,
you
no,
can't.
It's just, you're gonna have all the flaws are gonna actually be.
If anything, they're going to be
displayed.
accentuated.
Right. Yes.
And so, one, if you look at this bottle, you look at it. I mean, it's like it's see-through. You see the color of the whiskey. You hold it up to the light behind here, and
Beautiful.
you can see the flash. This bottle is built so you can see the liquid. Yep. We're very, very proud. When we started making this stuff, we're like, let's make the best thing we can. Yep. And the best thing that you can make, you want to show it at 50 or even slightly higher, so that people can then proof it down to where they like. Yes. Right now, I tend to think that 90 is about as low as you can go, and even I would argue that 92 is about as low as you can go.
Proof.
In proof, so 45 ABV.
Right.
When you start getting below that, things kind of get washed out. And then if you go really high, things hide. In fact,
over 60, 65%.
I'm going to give you a little side. I'm going to give you a side anecdote because we're pretty good at side anecdotes.
We are very good at that.
And this is something that you probably are never going to hear from most distillers, but I'm going to tell you about how we screwed up once.
Oh, go for it.
Yeah. And in fact, you can see our screw up on, what's the name of the website in Netherlands that tells you what to buy?
Whiskey Base.
Whiskey Base. Oh, you can see it in Whiskey Base because there's a couple of bottles that escaped over to Europe that had a major flaw in it. And I'm going to tell you how it got there, all right? And this has to do with high proof. So typically, back then, and things that have been adjusted because of that problem, we used to have a rule that we had 4 people here that would taste a barrel before it went into a bottle. And if anybody said
veto,
no, then it went back up on the shelf and it aged a little bit longer. So we had some people that just, simply put, they just didn't have the experience. It wasn't that they necessarily did anything wrong; they just didn't know. And they had and I was traveling, and Jay was traveling, I think, and it was like something needed to get bottled. And they tasted it out of the barrel, and they're like, this is good. And then they went ahead and bottled it up, and contrary to public opinion, no, we don't sit there and get hammered as we're bottling or drink every day, because you just don't. So they bottled this thing up, packaged it up, and off it went. Well, it had a fault note in it, and one that is very strangely, a small percentage of people absolutely love. I think it's kind of like the way Ardbeg attacks your palate. And then a pretty
a lot of Germans that love the Ardbeg.
Yeah. And then there's a pretty sizable that don't like it. We're talking like 15, 20%. And then there's kind of this middling that really don't pick it up. But it was a note that was very phenolic, like a creosote type note, and like a burnt plastic even. It was absolutely terrible. Like when I taste it now, I'm like, oh,
whoops.
Yeah. So it doesn't.
What did we do?
It does not show at high proof. You actually have to take it down so that those particular oils can then release, and then you can taste it and smell it. Wait. So, yeah, we bottled this stuff, and yes, it got sent on a pallet to the UK, and it got out there, and people were like, what the hell is this? Like, I used to like your stuff. Like, and we got some pretty nasty reviews on it that you will see in Whiskey Base. You'll see these like, great, like, oh, it's a 92 review, and then there's like 40. And we all know that anything below 80 is bad.
It's bad.
So it's like, that happened because just the quality control broke down. We're like, and as soon as we found it, we then called it back. And that's why we have year batch bottle numbers on bottles, so that we can pull those things back. And when it did come,
actually, the law in Europe to have a batch number on it.
Yes, and it's the law here in the U.S. We have to track it some way. Yeah. But it still got out there, and people got hold of it. As soon as we figured it out, we're like, oh no, and we pulled it back, and then we had to dig into it. And then you might go, okay, Dave, well, like, where did that note come from? And this is where I learned something. And this is the whole point about like running a distillery. Nobody's a master distiller. Like, that comes from like doing this stuff for 30, 40
I was
years.
maybe Jimmy Russell. All right.
Yes, Jimmy Russell. Well, we were just talking about Dave Shurik.
Right.
And Dave Shurik and Jimmy Russell are close buddies.
Right.
And I ended up having to,
And they both had, I think, at least 60 years of experience
yes.
each, I think.
I could not figure this thing out. Like, where did this note come from? What happened? I finally sent some samples to Dave Shurik. And
could you briefly tell us who Dave is?
Young Dave Shurik started a little distillery.
An excursion for an excursion for excursion.
Yeah,
here.
with a gentleman named Lincoln Henderson.
Yeah.
And they,
Luxury Reserve.
yes, they came over to Scotland and worked at a couple of places and bought some Forsyth stills and set up Woodford Reserve. And then when Lincoln left, Dave became the master distiller at Woodford. So the man knows some things.
Yes, he does.
He also worked at Seagram's for a number of years, which you might know as MGP now, formerly LDI, formerly Seagram's.
Yep.
I finally had to call him up, and I sent him some samples, and he tasted it, and he was like,
It's easy. I know what happened.
he was like, "Ha, you got some musky corn there, boy." And I was like, "All right, elaborate, please." He's like, "Sometimes when corn, over the course of the year, sits at the bottom of the silo, it gets wet, it gets a little bit of bacteria on it, mold, and that's musky."
Yeah.
And then that carries over through the distillation,
all the way
and
through.
that's what you taste here. And he's like, and there's no way you're getting it out of it. You're not going to blend it out. You're not going to make a cocktail out. Like, that stuff is done.
Yep.
And I said, well, how? Like, we have all these. We look at the corn. We do all this stuff before it comes in, quality control. He's like, no. You have to grind it, wet it, put it in a microwave for 15 seconds, and then you can smell it and you can detect it. And I was like, well, how the hell am I supposed to know to do that, Dave? And he's like, because now you are part of the club. It has happened to everyone, and everyone makes this mistake. Now it's about how do you handle it. And he was like, how are you handling it? And I said, I'm taking back as many bottles as I can. He's like, that's good. And I said, when somebody calls up and says, your whiskey is shit, I say, what bottle do you have? And if it's one of those bottles, then I replace it. Yeah. And that's what we did. Yeah. But that still does not stop some reviews from being there. And guess what? Anything online lasts forever.
Yeah, exactly. It lasts forever. So, cheers. So we had this actually in barrel strength at the warehouse.
We did have that in barrel strength at the warehouse.
That was so good.
Yeah.
Now we have 50%.
Oh, now we have bourbon,
which is still good.
So 100% corn.
Yep.
And what we're doing here is, as we taste through these things, he's Ubering again. So,
yeah, exactly.
So am I. So I'll have a little bit more. As we go through this range, and you have all these in Germany.
And there will be a live stream with this man here on the 31st of August in 2022.
And it will be just as fun, I swear to God.
I think it will be.
We get bigger as we go up. Yep. The corn is very sweet, okay? It's a base of all bourbons, obviously. But it's very, very sweet. It's not too sharp, and it's not too long. It literally is in between the wheat and the rye.
Exactly.
So this particular bottling is very barrel forward because we use alligator char barrels.
Yep. And smaller barrels, not 53 liter.
And quarter cask. Yes, these bottlings.
So what is a quarter cask? Is it a quarter of a sherry butt? Is it a quarter of a bourbon barrel? Is it a quarter of what?
Well, a quarter cask is generally a catch-all for any barrel that is smaller than a 53.
Thank you.
But a true quarter cask is about a 20-gallon barrel. Okay. Right? If you get down, like we have some barrels that are 20 liters. In the UK, they would refer to those as?
A 20 liter would be a blood tub.
Yes. Hallelujah. Bruichladdich did a blood tub when they first reopened and aged it for 6 years. And I think they're selling the secondary market for about 4,000 pounds. Yeah, pretty good stuff. You know why they call them blood tubs?
I actually don't remember. Tell me.
Because in the slaughterhouses, they would use it at the butcher when you kill a pig, it would catch all the blood. And it was the size that would fill up for what the pigs had to give.
I did not know that. That's disgusting. Thank you.
That's why it's a blood tub. But they used barrels for everything back then.
I'm sure all our vegetarian friends now that have watched up until this point just kind of went, stop.
I will add that these whiskeys are vegetarian.
Yes.
And
vegan,
and gluten free.
and gluten-free, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Excuse me, but all whiskey is gluten-free.
That's true. That is a true story.
Are you kosher?
No, we are not kosher. That is.
So many places are kosher. I was amazed at the places that are.
You know, well, I mean, you just.
Not
I
yet.
suppose I could go to rabbinical school.
Why
I mean, we do
no?
have. Well, we have a thing here that we call Stump the Rabbi.
Okay.
Which is basically, as a distiller, I'll do these things and then I go like, a crowd of people go, ask me any question,
Right.
literally any question, and I'll try to stump me.
Right.
Yeah, so kind of fun.
Okay.
Maybe you can try to do that later.
Maybe.
Meanwhile,
So
I'm trying
I'll
to
have
stump
ask
Jason.
about what is a 700 liter?
Oh, what is it? 700 liter
700
class?
liter cask. Yep.
Oh, what is that called?
Yes. Think about beanie.
It is a that's a
3-letter word.
That's a 30 hectoliter barrel, isn't it?
TUN. It's ton. Balvenie, 1608 ton.
Hold on. I'm thinking.
I'm
I think
thinking.
it's a tune.
It's a tune. It's a ton. Yes, TUN. Very good.
I thought
Very
it had
good.
an umlaut over it.
Exactly. No, it's not even Gaelic.
This is a German show, isn't it?
Let's put an umlaut on it, right? Your cask strength bourbon.
It's absolutely fabulous.
Oh, but you don't bottle it for any occasion, do you?
That's not true. We do.
Okay. That was so good. It's
It's
up there someplace?
Yeah.
Okay.
We
That
do.
was, I mean, this is good, but that was fantastic. I must.
So all these things, and what's really fun
So
about
the age
these,
on these are between 4 and 6, is that correct? Or how old would you?
it depends on the barrel size. Oops, sorry, I just went off camera. I'm to find this.
As a good bartender, it's just right down to your, right there where it belongs.
It depends on the barrel size. If these are coming out of 10-gallon barrels, we're typically looking at about 3, maybe a little bit longer, and then it keeps kind of growing from there. The 53-gallon barrels that we have in stock, we have never bottled.
Ooh.
And we've been doing this for 15 years.
Okay.
So we are trying to find that spot where we can make the profile the same.
Yep.
And so we're very much here less about age statement
Yep.
and all about profile,
Right.
right?
So
Age
you're
does
trying
not
to
equal
tell me-
maturity.
You're telling me that a 15-year-old 200 liter is basically the same as a 3-year-old 5-gallon.
I think 3-year-old 5 might be a little bit older.
See, I'm waiting for exactly that answer.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, good.
I mean, look, you can do a number of things, and hold
actually- I
on. Can
have
you
an
flash up?
equation
Can
for
you
that.
flash up the nerd sign right now?
I will try to
let's-
remember nerd.
Yeah. So one thing that you can do is that you can play losses in a barrel and match them. One of the things that I used to do when you could get these things is I'd take Buffalo Trace mash bill number 1.
Yes.
Okay, and which you used to be able to get Stag Junior in a variety of ages, right? And then Stag was a certain age when you could buy
much
Stag,
older, yes.
and you just go down the line, and you had Eagle Rare, and you could like
Tomorrow evening, this will not. So the day after we recorded this, I have an online blind tasting of BTAC.
Oh, really?
Yes, and I put a Stag Juniors just in there for good luck.
Ah, well then.
And I had to go to Irish Whiskey Life Dublin to get BTAC.
Well, there you go. So, and this is going to be fun because you're going to think about this as you do this tasting. What I used to do was when I trained people on for manufacturing, like Mary, we have an amazing distiller who runs all of our production. It's Mary Allison. So we are one of the few distilleries that actually has a woman running everything.
Good job.
So when I first trained Mary, as an example, I took BT number 1 mash bill, boom, 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 on ages that we knew. And then we took samples out of 5-gallon barrels at varying ages, and we matched them.
Okay.
And said, okay, are they close? But also more importantly, the jump in age.
Right.
Did you see the relative value from this barrel to this barrel versus this bottling to this bottling on age?
Very good.
And you can match these things up and see it. Now, if you really want to say you're from Missouri and say, show me, here's a funny story, and this is a quick one. When this bourbon won a double gold medal at the San Francisco World Spirits Comp, and all these guys have won double golds. We just collect them. They're all like up there. You can see them.
Oh yeah, they actually are.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch
like
of
25, I would say.
No, that's about 50.
Okay, see, I'm sorry for miscounting those, yes.
And that's like a tenth of what we have.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, we maybe have 10,000. Anyway.
Good job.
Yeah. But this is a funny story about that competition. When this one won its first double gold medal in 2013, and we used to write just the year 13, like
Right.
1-3, and then batch and bottle. And I submitted it, and back then they only had 11 and older and 11 and younger.
Oh, okay.
And so we were
So those
submitting a 5-gallon barrel at a year and a half. And so we said,
the 13, the 11 plus category.
no, we said 11 and younger
Right,
because we're like, oh, it's just younger.
Right.
But they received the bottle
Right.
and they
It's,
said,
13.
oh, Dave made a mistake.
Right.
And this is how long ago it was. They're like, Dave made a mistake because not many people are doing this. It's a 13-year-old.
Right.
Because I wrote 13 on it because it's
And
2013.
it still won
And they
double
put it in
gold.
11 plus, and it won a double gold medal. And that year, and you can look it up on San Francisco,
Yeah.
the only double gold in that category,
Was yours.
aside from there
Okay,
was one
besides-
other,
okay, which
and
one?
it was a little brand called Pappy Van Winkle.
A 23-year-old? Or which one was
That
it?
was a 15-year.
That was 15.
Yeah, because they're not going to enter the 23 for God's sake. So they're just like, oh, let's put the 15.
Yeah.
But more importantly, my heavyweight champion bourbon of all time for me is George Stagg.
Yep. George T. Stagg.
George. And George got a gold.
Oh, only a gold.
And we had beaten them, and I was like, shit.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I was like, how did that happen?
Whoa! Holy cow!
And that was just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So that's just kind of neat thing where when you put it in front of I don't know if they had 30 judges or 40 judges then, but if you don't know, to get a double gold, all
single
30
judge.
judges have to say it's a gold.
It's good. It's very
And then it's a double gold.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty impressive thing. And so when you're looking at like age statement or a quarter cask versus a 53, honestly, it really doesn't matter. What matters is, does it taste good?
Yep.
Do you want another?
Yep.
Yeah. So let's try this rye.
Right.
So we're tasting a rye, and again, we're going up in size. Boom, boom, boom. So we got wheat, bourbon, rye. And rye I refer to as our Adult Swim whiskey. How do you say that in German? You're from the U.S., so you
Right.
know what Adult Swim means.
I'm not really 100% sure. Help me.
Oh my God. Okay.
Isn't that what in the late night with?
Did
late
you
night
ever
TV show?
go to a swimming pool when you were a kid? And they said
YMCA to learn how to
Yeah,
swim.
yeah,
That was
yeah,
it.
yeah. And then everybody said, everybody out of the water, it's adult swim time. And then like the moms would get in and
Okay,
paddle around, and
right.
all the kids had to sit there and wait. And they're like,
No,
God damn it.
okay.
And it was like only the mature people could get in. Okay, that's what it means.
Okay, you have to be.
I can't work with this.
I'm sorry, forgive me. I can't work
Either
with
way.
this.
So-
Don't forget, I'm more German than I am American.
Ah,
okay?
that's true. Well, we love the Germans.
I hope so. Okay.
It's big. Why do I call it Adult Swim? Because it's big. It's spicy. It's we talked about this earlier. It makes 40% less,
Right.
costs twice as much, but it's so complex. And what it does, it's very grain forward. If you're a Scotch drinker, you come at this stuff from
Yes.
this way. If you're new to whiskey or brown spirits, you come at it from this side. If you're
So let me reiterate that. I mean, really. So if you're a single malt Scotch drinker, go for the rye first. If you don't like any whiskey whatsoever, what are you doing watching this channel? You come in from the weeded side, right?
yeah, yeah, and
Totally agree.
it's just a beautiful whiskey. And when you taste this, you'll realize, oh, here's why we started with the wheat, because the wheat's so subtle,
It's yeah. Right.
and oh, it's just amazing.
Yep. Good. Cheers. What do these sell for in the States?
$79.99.
Even though it's 40% less yield and
Well, you know,
kills your system.
you know who doesn't understand that?
Your the tax agency here.
No, I'd say the American consumer.
Okay, the American, I would say all consumers don't understand
but
that. I actually did a video series of best bourbons under 20 euros, best bourbons under 30 euros, best bourbons under 40 euros, best bourbons under 50. I had to do best ryes under 40, 50, 80.
Yeah.
It was just-
Well, actually, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
In the bourbons, were there any bourbons that were best under 20 that showed up in best under 50?
I didn't do. I did the categories.
Oh, so it's
what-
really like the best between 30 and 40.
Exactly. Some of my people say, "Well, what's the best of all of them?" It's like, okay, you have to. I actually did a mega bourbon challenge where it was all between. It was under 65 euros. And it was all between 40 and 50% ABV. That's the only problem because Wild Turkey 101, 50.5. It was not allowed to be in there. The exact same rules we had with our bourbon Scotch challenges. And what won that one was Eagle Rare was second place, and first place was our, Jason. What lost was Four Roses, by the way.
Oh, I love Four Roses.
I love Four Roses too. It won
Very oily.
The problem was we had the most recent batch that came to Europe is crap. I'm so sorry. But we had actually 3 preliminary rounds, and then the place 1 and 2 advanced to the finals, and they actually pulled up the preliminary. Beautiful. And the final, what happened here? We just got a bad barrel. And one was Woodford Reserve Double Oak. Woodford Reserve Double Oak, and then Eagle Rare. So those are the best whiskeys in our price category.
Well, both of those are extraordinarily good.
I know
whiskeys.
they are good, aren't they?
Yeah. So, now.
Going back to your stuff.
Yes. Hello.
Hello.
Wheat, bourbon, and rye. So what can we do with those? Now that's
And in the fall, we're going to do a mega rye challenge as well with 18 different rye whiskeys. Under 65 euros.
We've got, what else did we send over to Germany besides that? We sent these two? We sent these two. Well, we already drank these two. We have these two there. So let's do something fun. Let's try something that you can't have.
Why not? Which is?
Well, let's do this. And you tasted some of these in barrels. You want to do that? Okay, let's do that too.
The Milkman.
There's also the Milkman. Boom, boom. Now look at these guys. And hold on. And then there's the
Blade Rummer.
So this is kind of fun. And I'm going to tell you a little story about all 3 of these. Okay?
These
See that
cost
guy?
more than 124 euros.
No, these cost $124.99. We have nothing that costs more than $124.99.
Sorry, I thought they were more.
Well, because you know what? We actually want people to drink our whiskey. We don't want them to like grab it and stick it away. You want to try that too?
Off camera.
Really? No, we can do everything on camera.
Yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
That way people know that we actually did it.
All right.
Okay, so we're going to start with this guy. Let's go with Milkman.
Let's go for the Milkman.
Because I'm not sure you didn't have this out of a barrel
No, I did not.
in the Rick House.
What's the story? Oh,
Yes.
smaller pores, please.
Oh, no.
Okay. The later the evening, the higher, the bigger the pores.
Pour some of mine.
Yes.
This is what friends do. They share whiskey.
They share whiskey.
Let that be a lesson
I don't
to
know
all of
if
you.
I think I still have more than
give
you do.
Give me more then.
Good.
Don't be a baby. And what's good is this is 107 proof, and we're going to have a quiz to see if Jason knows where 107 proof comes from.
I'm going to go to Jimmy Russell again because he said that's the best.
Is that what he
ever.
said?
Yes, he said the best.
Jimmy.
I think
The consummate marketer, that man.
Weller
Gotta love him.
107, everything 107.
All right, so here we go.
What do we have?
We have
The Milkman.
the Milkman. And the Milkman is 70 corn, 15 wheat, and 15 rye. Now,
So you actually put in the barrel,
yes,
and you take it out of the barrel, and you blend it to create this mixture.
this is the best way to describe
Exactly.
it.
You can actually take,
So we're going to go, okay, wheat, bourbon, rye.
Yep.
70 corn,
Right.
15 wheat, 15 rye.
In
Bulk.
exactly.
And then
we finish it in
a milk stout barrel. And you might say, what the hell is a
What
milk
is
stout?
milk
A milk stout is a stout beer, but that has lactic acid in it. Gives it a very creamy, milk-like finish.
Isn't it similar to the dragon milk beer and so on? I don't care. Don't worry.
Shit, I don't.
I don't know.
That is
Deanson did a dragon.
That is
dragon's
literally
milk.
above my pay grade.
Okay.
So this whole line came about because we had somebody come to us and they said, "Oh, we've got this 1960s bottle of bourbon," and they finished it.
Okay.
And they're like, "Can you recreate it for us?"
Wow.
So, well, I don't know what that.
They finished it in a milk.
No.
Okay.
No. They just finished the bottle.
Okay.
And then they said, "I would like another bottle of this, but they cannot find it because it's a 1960s Old Dusty."
Right.
So they came to us and said, "Can you recreate it?"
Right.
I said, "Well, Mac, I don't know what that tastes like." And he said, "But I do." I said, "All right, fine, come in." So he tasted verticals and horizontals of our barrels, came up with a mash bill, 70 corn, 15 wheat, 15 rye, but he varied the ages of the barrels. And said,
Which seems very reliable for the time. I mean.
and then said, but we're missing barley.
Yeah.
Now, luckily, There's a local brewery down the street, and the head brewer was here, and he had actually worked at Philadelphia Distilling before, so he understood. And he was like, you know what? We got a barrel of milk stout, or stout beer. This is the Hollands Ghost. This guy said, I got a barrel of stout, and we're about to dump it. Let's just put it in that, because no matter what, any liquid you have in a barrel, about 6% of it goes into the wood, and then we get our barley nut from that. So we did exactly that. He literally went down the street, got the barrel, brought it in, and we're like, all right,
on the sidewalk.
And then we blended it up and put it in there. And after about, I think that first one that we did, we probably rested it for 6 months in the finishing barrel, and it was a dead ringer for a 60s bourbon. I mean, it just nailed it.
And the guy said,
he said, hell yeah, and we sold out of it in 45 minutes. And so we're like, well, let's do that again. Then somebody approached us and said, hey, I got this 25-year-old Jamaican rum cask. And we're like, well, let's do the same thing. Boom, boom. And that became Blade Rummer.
Right.
And then, our beer friend said, well, because of course we asked them and said, hey, do you have any more stout barrels? Let's do this. And they're like, not right now, but we have this milk stout. And we're like, okay. There you go.
Whatever.
And then Milkman was born. And what's neat about Milkman is all of them are at 53.5 ABV. Yep. And that's where the trivia comes in. 107?
Yeah. Why? 53.5?
Well,
I heard it's the most viscosity possible.
Who told you that?
Julia Nonai. Thank you, Julia.
What
did you hear?
So, what I heard, and really literally, some of this stuff is apocryphal, but I do think this one is actually true. So, in the period of the 50s to the 60s, and you can fact check me on this.
Please do.
The barrel entry proof that the federal government, the United States, the ATF at that time, allowed you to do was 114.
Right.
Now, Kentucky tends, I might add, to lose strength in the barrel.
Unless it's in a higher level.
Some rick houses really high will go
up. But if you have a normal
but on average, they tend to lose. If you're doing you're doing a dunnage house, they go down.
Yeah.
And so, and this is another key thing about barrels, and we can talk about this as well too. But a 53-gallon barrel, long ago, is widely considered that about 6 years is the sweet spot. And you might
would have said 8.
Well, you know why they say 6?
I don't know.
If you put liquor into a barrel at a certain proof, you will extract everything that the barrel has to give within one standard deviation in about 6 years.
Okay.
And so after that, you're not getting anything else out of the barrel. It's just oxidizing and maturing. And that's a whole nother discussion. But so back then, if you went in a barrel for that period of time at 114, you came out of the barrel at what? Yeah. So 107 was the original barrel proof.
Ah.
There you go.
Thank you.
So that's where it came from.
I'm no longer ignorant.
Yes.
Which I've been my whole life, apparently.
And you're also now saucy for drinking 107 because 53.5 is pretty strong.
Ah.
And you know what? We talked about this earlier. You know what you can't hide at 53.5?
Oh, anything that's wrong.
Yes, you cannot.
We had hazmat at the warehouse, so this is...
Yeah. But this guy, with the milk stout, imparts some really, really incredible notes of... we have a candy here in the U.S., and Shelley actually talks about this in her book.
Yeah. Which candy did she talk about in her book?
Yes, Make It a Double. Shelley Sackyer, our director of distillery education, has a book that just came out called Make It a Double.
Soon there will be a live stream, maybe even before this video comes out.
And then it's like we're the time traveler's wife. It's like what period are we in?
You'll have a live stream. She'll have a live stream. We have this video. Yeah. I think it's going to be 2 videos by this point.
Yeah, it should be. I mean, my God, there's so much to share. And what the hell were we talking about now?
We were talking about 107.
Oh yes, the old 107. Well, it's pretty tasty, and you can't hide bad distillation up at that point. And when you have 107, 53.5, it makes
Good
things
stuff.
degrade very quickly.
Yeah, you can't hide anything at that point. Exactly.
No.
One last one?
Yeah, let's do
Then
it. Well, let's do this.
Which one?
Well, you know what? Let's pick something that's actually really interesting.
As if nothing has been interesting so
You know, we
far.
talked about the Blade Runner, and I'm just going to show you this. If you're a fan of the movie,
Yeah.
Blade Runner, our guy is
Runner.
dressed as Deckard from the original movie.
Yeah.
It's cool.
That was 24-year-old. How old was the rum?
25-year-old rum
25-year-old
cask
rum cask.
from
Wow.
Jamaica. You can guess which place it came from. I'm going to walk down here. I'm going to find something pretty cool.
Okay, we can still hear you.
Ah.
So.
Okay, great.
Good, got it. What do we
This
have?
is part of our Grey Ghost series.
Oh, explain to me what that means, the Ghost series.
So Grey Ghost is...
Grey Ghost, I'm sorry.
Luckily, this is in Germany, so I can't
Oh.
imagine that I'll get in trouble in the U.S. But the Grey Ghost series originally started because they were barrels that we had lost,
Right.
and they didn't end up on our official records. So they were ghost barrels.
Okay.
And because we put the same label on it, we differentiated these because they tended to be much older with gray wax. And if you noticed before, we had
Gold.
bourbon was
Right.
blue. No, sorry, wheat was blue, bourbon's black,
Black.
rye was red, and then we had gray. Now this one has a gold cap on it, which
Yes.
is extra special because this is for our club called the Alligator.
Down below we have gray, and
Yes.
then on top of it, gold.
We have a group here called the Alligator Char Society. That
Oh,
is
it
our
Richmond?
yeah,
Yes,
that,
okay.
that is our group that belongs to us, that gets access to all sorts of fancy, fun things that we do. This bottling,
Can I become a member? Would you send it to Germany?
I'm not allowed to, but I'm sure we could figure something
I'm
out.
sure we could figure something out. All right.
So this one is an interesting bottle
Yeah.
because you tasted a couple of the components of it.
Okay.
So normally we talked about the wheat, corn, and rye that we make, but we also have some barley in-house. And this is a 4-grain
Oh.
with barley in it, and it is served at 119 proof. And it is excessively old out of small casks.
So we're talking 5 gallons.
Yes, and
Okay.
oh yeah,
Oh yeah, he likes this one.
no, this one is, and you know, keep in mind it's 119,
Yeah.
which was
So
my first
59.5%.
that was my weight in my first wrestling
Me
championship.
too.
Yeah. Ah, right on. Did we wrestle in high
I
school?
wrestled in high school. I didn't win a championship, but I wrestled.
Well, I wrestled against Midlothian. But by the way,
maybe you were the
nearby
guy
high
that
school.
pulled me up and slammed me down once.
there was a kid in Midlothian that I threw. I had like hip throated and
Yeah.
pinned.
Okay. So
Well,
was it?
I knew the
80
Wysong brothers.
Was it 86, 87? Where was it?
Yeah, actually.
Okay, we might have actually wrestled back then together. I lost more than I won.
I have to go back and look at this.
Yeah,
Oh,
I went
anyways.
up to 116, 126, and then I think in the last 2 years I was 132.
Yeah, and how much do you weigh now?
Over 200.
Yeah, I also weigh over 200.
I'm just going to say that. Over, more than I should.
Okay, so 119, it's a 4-grain whiskey. It's from Quarter Cask. It's part of the Grey Ghost series.
Yep.
It's really beautiful whiskey.
Ooh. The alcohol is more like 50. Cheers. So it's just blended. There's no finishing cask involved. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, towards the end. So it does this. It goes wee.
Yeah. So
Oh yeah.
what's fun with these whiskeys, and
I'm
it's
back at the warehouse now. Actually.
yeah, and you know
Was
what?
there any water involved in this? No, exactly.
No, I'd be remiss to say that you know, you have to pay attention to how long it sits in glass as well. You know, a bottle like this, it'll change in the glass
Right.
for over an hour, which is an exceedingly long time. And I like to kind of point out to people, just give them a relative value comparison. White label Jim Beam, about 30 seconds, and it stops changing.
Right.
Okay. Our mainline founders, like 25, 30 minutes. That's really good.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's a long time for a whiskey to develop, because when we actually bottle stuff, people will get a glass, they'll play with it for about 10 minutes.
Okay.
They'll drink some of it,
Yep.
but it takes about 10 minutes minimum to drink a glass of whiskey
Yes.
on the bar. And so we want to know what that whiskey tastes like at those specific times. So you typically bottle looking at that 10-minute mark.
Right. Okay. I did not know that either. Okay.
Well, this is what happens when you get a distiller who's very free with his tongue and talks too much.
Who's smart and actually shares the knowledge with us.
These guys move for over an hour. In fact, you remember our neighbors we actually got to hang out in Dusseldorf,
Yep.
and our neighbors across the way from Estonia,
Right.
who really loved,
yeah.
they really loved this bottling,
Yes.
and they put it in a glass and left it overnight, which I was like, okay, but they loved it. They're like, it's still amazing to drink. I'm like, okay, great.
Thank you. Good to know.
Yeah.
With no lid, by the way.
No lid, and which I'm kind of, Estonians love different flavors.
Yeah.
They really do. So
Well done. So where can I find out about your whiskeys here? www.com.
Reservoir Distillery. That is RESERVOIR distillery.com.
Now, I have not asked this question yet. Why that name?
Well, one, right outside here, you can't see it, but there's a road.
Right.
And again, I think we talked about Richmond. It's old, but not old by European standards.
For American standards, is old.
The original reservoir for the city was out here, and this road was called the Reservoir Road.
Okay.
So there you go. But the other kind of
They
neat thing,
drained the reservoir. I did not know that.
but the other neat thing is that if you turn this just right, Reservoir looks like Reserve,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
people think Reserve is good. So, so yeah.
Woodford Reserve, something else Reserve.
Yeah,
who knows?
it's but it's whiskey is, if anything, a lot of it is about the water.
Yep.
And so you got to have really good water.
And where do you get your water from?
Oh, well, this is a fun story. We actually get it from the city.
Yep.
And the city of Richmond, again, we talked about, it's very old. They combined the sewer and the
rainwater.
and the rainwater, which we talked about back there.
Yep.
But more importantly, way more importantly, because of that, we have this very old system. It is much cheaper. Like if you have water flowing through this and the system breaks down, your water main breaks, it's very expensive to fix. So it's much cheaper to buffer the water going into the system, right?
Right.
As opposed to repairing it. So the way they do that is they run the water over limestone gravel.
Just like Kentucky.
Yes, so they replicate the Kentucky aquifer layer for us, and we don't have to worry about it. It's pretty, they're right on it. So that was one of the reasons why we went here as opposed to a place outside of the city, because we've got artesian wells or the river, and then you have different factors that come in. You can have algae blooms in the river that create geosmin, and you have to handle that, or you have artesian wells that, depending on the season and the water, do they run, do they not? And the city's just, it's reliable, it's very predictable, and that's what you want when you're making whiskey. You want to know what you got as your input.
Learn something new again.
Yeah. Well, I hope we learned something.
So what did I not ask that I should have asked that you want to talk about?
Well, I'll tell you. How about this? Some of the questions that I normally get that you don't get. I usually get one as to hey, what do you drink normally, if not yourself?
If you're not drinking whiskey, what do you
Or what do you think is the best value in bourbon?
Oh, okay.
So which one? You get to pick one.
Well, the best value in bourbon is going to be Wild Turkey 101, in my personal opinion. Do you disagree?
That is your opinion.
Okay. Well, what do you drink when you're not drinking your stuff?
Okay. So you want to go that way then?
Yes, I do.
Fine. I used to say, when I started.
I used to say, before you had your wife.
No.
Okay.
Because she likes scotch even more than I
know,
do.
much more.
I used to say Blanton's because back then, Blanton's as BT number 2, it was the OG of single barrel,
Right.
very crafty
Yeah.
almost. I'd say Woodford's the original crafty guys,
Right.
and
Well,
Blanton's
we
was
could differentiate.
you
between
can
Maker's
argue
Mark.
about all these things, but
Yeah.
it's but the concept of what
Yep,
they were trying
yep.
to do. Blanton's as a single barrel program.
Thank you, Japan, for
yes.
keeping bourbon alive all these years.
And it was also ubiquitous. You could find it at any hotel anywhere in the world, and it was always like, oh, this is a great whiskey. Like about what 92 or whatever it was offered at. It was like it's perfect, but you can't get that anymore.
Right.
And so it's really hard to find things like that. So nowadays, and I'm just going to bleed this right into, you get a twofer, what I think is the best value.
Oh, both at once. Two birds with one stone.
And that is Old Granddad 114.
I don't disagree with you, but
I know you don't disagree with me because it's correct. It is literally, in this world
so
where
it's Basil Hayden's on steroids. Same mash bill.
yes, but it's the same distillery that's been making it forever, and that's important. So one of the things that you saw when you went through my distillery is that you have these open top fermenters, and you have these friendly bugs that are coming from outside that we're drawing in across it, and no matter what, you can take this setup and you can move it anywhere.
Yeah.
It's not going to taste the same.
Yeah.
Right?
True.
And what's beautiful about Old Granddad, even though it's like, especially even the orange label, it's just even keel, been doing the same thing over and over. And you want a classic ride bourbon, it's outstanding.
Yep.
And it's still priced appropriately.
Well, the 104 in Germany is not priced appropriately. We're
it's
talking
not?
55, 80 euros.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because it's very hard to find.
Here in the United States, you can get the 114 for $25.
If you can find it, it's located in some states.
Yeah.
Allocated.
And because it's like with the way that the bourbon market has gone,
Yeah.
it's like things have all gotten kind of
Crazy. Weird.
But it's a beautiful whiskey. It's very well made. Look, the guys in Kentucky, they make it a different way than we make it, but they make some really great stuff. We make some things that are really good as well, and there's a lot of other whiskeys out there that are being made from other craft guys using different techniques or different terroir or however you want to cut it, all the inputs that we have that are really, really good. So this is a really exciting time to be a consumer of
and a
bourbon.
producer as well.
Well, it's like we get to do something that we really actually enjoy.
Yep.
And that's not a bad thing, is it?
Good. My very, very first video ever in German was Old Granddad.
Oh, was it really?
Yeah, that's why I have the orange from Old Granddad as one of my colors I have on all my things. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad that I was able to
see?
kind of bring it full circle. I hope this isn't your last.
No, definitely not. Yeah, all right. So
Well, we never know.
you never know. Yeah, 3,500 whiskey videos later, it's like, okay, stop.
Well, maybe then when you do your last one, could I be your guest?
I hope not. I don't know who. I hope I'll do this for a few more years.
No, I'm not saying now. I'm saying like in another 50 years. Can I be the last guest?
In English, maybe, yes.
I'll learn to speak German by then.
Oh, okay. By then, I'll have you my German. All right, so we'll agree. You'll learn German, and you'll be my last
Was ist
guest.
das?
Okay. Oh, what's that? Very, very good.
Wo ist das Bier?
Once again?
Wo ist das Bier?
Okay, where's the beer?
Where's the lighter?
Okay, where's the lighter? I'm sorry.
Beer, lighter, right?
Okay, no, Feuerzeug.
Feuerzeug?
Yeah, for a lighter. Sorry.
What's Fear then?
Fear is, I don't know what Fear is for.
Maybe it was just
Ein,
slang.
zwei, drei, vier.
I hung out with these German guys in Venice at watching a Pink Floyd show in 1988.
Okay, wow.
And they didn't speak English, and we were trying to smoke a chillum,
right.
and somebody was like, I was like, how do you say where's the lighter?
Yeah, okay.
Wo ist das Bier?
Okay, Feuer.
Ah,
Okay, wo ist das Feuer? Where's the fire?
Yeah, there you
That's
go.
what they say. All right, now I
Yeah.
understand you. So a little lesson in German as well at the end here. All right, WhiskyJason here. Whiskey from the viewpoint of an American over here in Richmond, Virginia, Reservoir Distillery together with
Dave Cuttino.
Thank you very much for watching.
Cheers.
Ciao.
Sanja.
Excellent.
That was fun.
That was fun. It was.